Now, Burnout is a series that I absolutely adore with all my heart. Even back in the day when I wasn't that much of the car sim guy, I played the heck out of titles like these that were just nothing but mindless destruction, like any sicko child would. And once in a while when I'm feeling agitated or depressed nowadays, I boot up some Paradise or Revenge to get me back in high spirits. It's basically the quintessential comfort series for me. So yeah, with that said, I was playing Dominator the other day and I was wondering about the first two games in the series, since the earliest game you hear talked about outside of the community is 3, and that's a given since it's the best one. But at the same time, I see almost no discourse about 1 and 2, mostly 1, on the interwebs, and that led me to this. Look at this. You're gonna see a lot of this. So enough of this quick tangent though, let's take a stab at where it all started. The forgotten beginnings of Burnout.
Burnout. Drive dangerously on the PlayStation 2 computer entertainment system.
First, some background. This entire thing got its inspiration by another vehicular mayhem game in quotes called Thrill Drive. This Konami arcade racer is honestly quite the bizarro one when you dive in. The gist about this game is that it does a complete 185-star flip on the Burnout games that we know and love, and it discourages reckless driving and crashes. But when you crash is where shit starts to get real.
Shit getting out of hand now.
So yeah, Thrill Drive got 2 other games of their own, which led to Criterion Games, who at the time was a subsidiary for Canon, to create their own racer in the vein of Thrill Drive. And when I mean vein, I mean the entire game is like a Thrill Drive sequel. It wasn't just that one game that filled as inspiration, as flicks of the time like Ronin,
Tell me about an ambush. Tell me about an ambush. I ambushed you in a cup of coffee.
and Basic Impact gave a hand in the track settings and the chases. Okay, so development went like this. Burnout started development as a PS2 game called, and I'm not joking, Shiny Red Car. Like, is this a game about devastating crashes or just a fucking car show? Anyways, but that thankfully didn't last long, but they also landed on Heaven's Drive as a title before finally settling down on Burnout. And booting it up, this game looks simple. Honestly, what do I expect from a budget game from 2001 anyways? You have the Championship GP mode and a single race and time attack. Special includes Face Off where you race another car for pink slips, and Survival when you avoid oncoming traffic for as long as possible. There's 5 cars initially given to us at the start. I ran with the Sports Coupe and later the Saloon GT that I unlocked in Face Off, but in all honesty none of them look anything special or whatever. And you're fine with just sticking with one of them for the rest of the game. What's special though is the list of tracks we have. 4 of these are GPs consisting of 3 races. Well, I wouldn't call them just races, they're more like marathons. Like you could complete a mission on Revenge twice over in order to get the full duration of one of these. The other 2 are the actual marathons though, which lasts about 15 minutes, so yeah, these tracks are humongous. Mostly akin to early Need for Speed. I'll talk about what I think about them later, but seeing how the franchise goes down later on, this is a stark contrast to say the least. Alright, first impressions. Out the gate there's a handful of differences and kinks that contrast from later editions of Burnout. Insanely enough, this game uses a checkpoint system judging by the green timer at the top. Pat yourself on the back, Thrill Drive, your influence is already showing. The controls are a tad jarring and slippery, yes, but after a while I got used to the handling for the most part. Side note, it's probably because I'm playing the GameCube version, which from what I've heard performs and controls better than the Xbox PS2 counterparts. The speed of the game moves at a reasonable pace, but lacks the fiery, rambunctious side the series obtains later on. Also, wow, the music is kinda good. Might be one of my favorite non-licensed racing OSTs I've heard in a while. Some people might not be fond of the soundtrack, but I think it meshes well with the chaotic nature of Burnout. And hey, speaking of chaos, Yeah, did I mention this game is pure agony? Yeah, this game is kind of like, imagine Need for Speed Hot Pursuit with like 15 different PEDs jammed into it. I don't think I've ever played a racing game this bullshit in my life, and I don't know where to start with it. First off, the crashes, a staple of Burnout. They're nothing special. Really, some of these are cool and others are just... what? I hate this collision detection with a passion. You can get thrown off and pushed way back down in position for the tiniest of bumps, and even worse, lose entire races at the dying breath. And it wouldn't even be the worst thing ever if this game didn't have some really bad rubber banding. The CPU is always on your tail no matter what, and they speed past you about 90% of the time when you crash. This is demoralizing. All of that padded with the races that go on a bit too long sweeps this game from mundane to infuriating with the collision of a pickup truck. As I said before, I am playing this on the GameCube. I mentioned this because this isn't even the hardest version of the game. The PS2 version of Burnout is apparently so hard that even the people at Sony refused to release it on their console until they fully knew this game could be completed. If that doesn't describe this game's difficulty in one neat nutshell, then I give up. This leaves us with some boosts, and for this one I've got bad news. It sucks. You have to have it filled up to the tip for it to be used. It only cuts like 5% into the length of the race, and it's better not using it anyways unless you're in dire straits. Burnout is indeed in this game, but as I said before, it's utterly useless when the rubber banding comes into play, so again, just don't bother with it much. Enough with the hold up though, let's talk tracks. And yeah, they go on for far longer than they should. And besides, in the final game we only have 2. You heard me right. 2 maps that are split in 3 in the championship, with some being played in reverse. And I mean final game because it was originally advertised to have 16 out the box. Hell, even the manual states 16 tracks and that never got edited. Again, this game feels very Thrill Drive-like, but when it's a home console game, you gotta do better than this. And don't get me started with the level order. Interstate being the first race of the championship should be an international war crime in at least over 100 countries, no questions asked. Anyways, the city backdrop and overall the graphics aren't anything of note. Although in certain terrains it gets to a point where it's hard to see where you're going without the aid of a direction arrow. And it could just be me, but I seem to get a little excessive with it. This game in fairness is still a bare bones racer from the early 2000s. It only takes a couple hours to complete the championship and to unlock everything in one session, which now that I realize may be why the difficulty is off the rocker, but that conversation feels a bit redundant with all we've seen. So yeah, that's the original Burnout in a nutshell. To wrap the short retrospective up, I think this game isn't all that bad, and for firsts like these where a studio is trying to cook up something special, you have to be a little more lenient. The second game, from bits of what I've seen and heard, looks like a big jump in the right direction. So much that it makes today's subject look more like a total proof of concept than ever, so maybe I'll play one day. At this point, I have no idea what I'm saying, so look at this.
Superb physics.